Hola, audiencia, y bienvenidos a Hoy Dimelo Cinema Club. I am tonight's host, Jason Ishmael Eccles, and I am joined by my illustrious panel of co-hosts, Don Dino Spizzini and Steve Des TV, as it would be. Tonight we are reviewing the 1954 musical classic Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. It's starring Jane Powell and let me just make sure I get it right, Howard Keel. So I've never seen these two in a movie before, so that was great checking it out. You know, seeing these guys, they're terrific in it. The reason I chose this film is because my aunt told me that this was her favorite movie of all time before she passed away. She passed away about 2 years ago, about 25 months ago, as it would be. And she told me this was her favorite movie, and I had never seen it before. And I was thinking, like, man, I need to watch that movie because, it's somebody's favorite that was close to me. And movies are really important to me. I believe that someone's favorite movie is a sort of a window into their soul. So I decided to honor her and do this and review this movie with us tonight. So let's go ahead and jump into first thoughts. Dino, why don't you start us off if you would?
Wow, I don't know what this says about that you're on. The movie was wild. I yeah, it's not one of the musicals I really know, and boy was I in for a surprise. Maybe we all were, because you know, it starts off. He's already eyeing all the ladies, and like I'm gonna, not just gonna pick any girl to marry me, but I gotta make sure they look fine and they know how to cook and all that. And then he does, and his brothers are a bunch of creeps. The whole movie. Well, we saw it together. The whole movie, I'm just like, why are they creeping around so much? Like, he brings this girl. Clearly, they've never been around the girl, because then it's like time to go to bed, and the brothers are just like, we want to hear what y'all gonna be doing up there. And yeah, so brother is a bunch of creepos, and then they get the girls in the barn, lifting, and then that falls apart, and then they go and kidnap women. They go breaking and entering, assault, kidnapping women, and then they get stuck because of the snow falling, and it becomes a Stockholm syndrome and more, because then the girls are all like, "Oh no, like there, I haven't been around any bros in about a year because we're snowed in, so I guess I'll stay with the guy that kidnapped me." And they do, and then they pull a Spartacus, and to make it to where they're able to marry, they all pretend that they are the ones that had the baby out of wedlock. What? Insane, just ridiculous. And I enjoyed it. I had a gummy, and it just kept tripping me more and more. And I was like, what is going on? It was so wild. Anyway, but it's a good time, especially watching it with someone else in the room, just cackling about what's going on is great. Oh, and the fake chores. Oh, gotta love me some like good old fashioned. We're in a musical, and it's not like other musicals where it's kind of like we're still gonna be doing stuff like the actual actions. This is like, yeah, we're gonna be doing choreographed chopping wood without chopping wood, and everyone's in sync. And yeah, it was beautiful choreography and great singing voices, but it was just so wild to see something from like 1954 and be like, good. Oh, that whole family, the Petitinones or whatever they were called, they're all about to get canceled in this day and age. They're about to get me too in this day and age. But for 1954, man, pretty darn good. That's it. That's all I got.
All right, very cool. Steve, why don't you go ahead and give us your first impression?
My first impression is the first time watching it. I thought it was gonna be based in Provo, Utah, or Salt Lake City, um, and turned out to be, in the caveman era. A lot of people don't, they just they just walk down the street and just find a wife, be like, "Hey, you want to marry me?" Hey, uh, and this was I was telling my buddy who I was watching some of the film with, that this was early Tinder. Uh, you just like see who was near your radius, and you just went for it because you don't know when you're gonna see this person again. And also, there's a rumor going on that possibly the dance scene was the initial inspiration for RRR. Uh, and that's where
I
they got
brought that
that.
up, didn't I, at one point,
Yeah,
Jason?
yeah, we said it a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was actually pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie. Like that
Uh,
entire choreography, that was the thing that impressed me most about the movie. Was just
yeah.
how, like, not only great acting, because like it requires a skill to act stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really a skill set
Uh,
to act like a believable stupid person, and then on
be
top of
funny.
that, no, no, no. On top of that, have the fucking athleticism and ability to follow choreography like
Yeah.
those people had, because it was insane. Like I almost
It's like,
rewinded that entire thing because I was just like, there's so many moving pieces going on that it's like I wonder if they did all this stuff in like one take, you know?
some of it though, I mean, there are definitely cuts, right, because of angles and all that. But I was surprised how long some of the shots were.
Mhm.
Real quick, just to cut it, you have John Wick 4 choreography. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers is like above and beyond the John Wick 4 choreography. Anyway, go on,
Also,
Steve.
also in the sequel, they all get divorced, right?
Yeah, but they each have a dog.
Mm. The little emotional support dog. Anyway, that's my first impression.
Very cool, very cool. So I think both of you had very, very valid initial thoughts about this thing. I share many of them, so I'll skip a few just to move this thing along a bit. My first impressions were, so I tried to watch this movie in the past. But I always kind of came in on it on like weird parts. Like I would come in on the dancing, and I was not always a musical fan, musical comedy fan or whatever. Like I never really liked those movies until like, I got a little, experience or age on me. But I would always come in at a weird part, like, and it's like it's kind of weird to come in a musical, like in the middle of a dance number, because you don't know what they're singing or dancing about. And you're like, I don't even care because I don't. There's been no build up for me, so I've always kind of struggled. And then also, I would turn the movie on, like in other places, it would be so colorful, and I'm just like, what is this? So I was really good to watch it from the beginning because the beginning is pretty strong. Like the lead character was very likable. He's very like masculine, Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone, woodsman type of guy or whatever, with like this great sense of confidence and just very strong leading man right from the off. I liked him because he's funny, he's chill, he's nonchalant. He's like, I'm gonna get a girl today. I'm gonna find me a wife. So it took me too long to come up here, so I can't go back home empty handed. I think all of the brothers were very funny. I really liked them. I liked all the brides too. I kept wondering what that casting process must have been like. It must have been brutal. Like auditions for this thing. Like they probably saw so many actors and so many combinations of actors of like people who they probably wanted to, switch in and out. And I kept thinking stuff like that. The choreography, jumps right out at you because the dance choreography and the fight choreography scenes are so long and so intricate, and there's even so much going on in the background. It's not like they're like faking it in the background. There's like full choreography fights happening in the background of at least two scenes, and there's so much going on, and then the camera is a part of the choreography because the camera's moving with them sometimes during the choreo or whatever you want to call it, the choreograph, the core, whatever. But so there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening with that. Funny thing is, after having seen RRR in the dance battle, it's just all you can think about. It's like, oh man, this like reminds me of RRR. Like this is straight up, got some Bollywood vibes on it, or Tollywood, or whatever that was. I don't know. Let's see. My other initial thought was, Julie Newmar in this movie, she's like really familiar to me. She's the one who was the brunette, the tall brunette bride who was married, who was going to get married to the second brother, the second eldest. And I was like, man, this girl is like really attractive, and she's really like charismatic, and she has this great smile, and like she looks super familiar. She reminds me of a pinup girl. What she was in fact a pinup girl. Julie Newmar, most famous for Catwoman in the original Batman series with Adam West. She was the original Catwoman for 2 seasons. And so yeah, I went down a wormhole last night of like learning more about her career and whatnot. And she's a total babe, total babe. Great voices, great singing. I will say this though, the songs to me were not very memorable in this thing. The performances of the songs really good, but the music itself, the music book, I don't remember any of these songs. I mean, except for like maybe the Hyde song, and I don't know the tune. I just remember that it was so silly. But the movie is funny, and I feel like the brothers, like their dynamic together. I feel like maybe that's where you get the most laughs in the movie because it's just a bunch of brothers, it's 7 dudes in a house goofing off, and the dynamic the 6 brothers have with the wife, Millie, is terrific. I love all their scenes where she's like teaching them like to get cleaned up and telling them what to do, and they're like so forceful against her. Like, no, we're not going to do it, and she just keeps like trumping them, like, nope, absolutely not. You're doing what I tell you to do, and like, fine, we'll do it. Like all those scenes, those are probably my most favorite scenes of the movie, as far as like comedy goes. I thought that timing and the way that was all delivered was terrific. Those were my initial thoughts of the film. So let's go into like characters, because this thing is like loaded with characters. I want to know, like, who did you guys identify with, or who did you like the most on screen?
Identified and liked. Wow. Well, Gideon, the youngest brother, he was the funniest.
I
Right?
agree.
We kept
Yeah.
mentioning about him, just like, and and I'm glad you brought up the Millie thing with all the brothers, because at times I was like, Are you gonna hook up with these other guys now? Like, I felt the way that she like had relationships with them. I was like, do we know who the father of her son or of her girl is? Is it really him? He was out in the woods, but definitely Gideon, and I think Millie. I think she kicks ass from the very first time we see her from the main guy's perspective, just like chopping wood. Then she's giving sass to the people at the in the little restaurant, well, not restaurant, but wherever she's cooking. And then the brothers also, she like throws the table full of food. The very first day, it's just kind of like, you guys, you eat like pigs, you're gonna eat like pigs, and eat it on the floor. So I think her is the one that definitely I just had the strongest part. I feel like, because she has the whole gambit from like, I think I'm in love, this is gonna be great, to like, whoa, did I just get thrown into Utah and now it's one girl and 7 dudes? Like, I didn't sign up for this. To the, let's see what I can do about it. So definitely,
Well,
I think she had the strongest character for sure.
welcome to the TLC channel.
Yeah.
Well, I would agree with that actually. I feel like maybe not my most favorite characters, But Millie is the most dynamic. She has the
Yes.
most to do, and she has the most emotional range. And you kind of see the thing through Millie's perspective. Even if you're a guy, I feel like you see the thing through Millie's perspective. She sort of feels like the lead of this thing, if we're being like, because she definitely has more screen time than Adam does, uh,
Yeah.
than uh, than Keel does. But she has this great range where she comes in, she's really dynamic, she's a go-getter, she's tough, she's chopping firewood, she's breaking up bar fights, she's feeding everybody delicious stew. Everybody in the town kind of loves her. And she's just sort of very independent and strong, and she can kind of run the show by herself. And then she gets to this, she's very hopeful, and she falls madly in love with this man. And he leaves off the fact that, hey, I got six brothers, and she gets there and she goes, wait a minute. It's six of you guys here? How come you didn't tell me there's six people living with us? And so you see that range. And that's just all good acting because you believe it. Because you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, this is bogus. Like, you've got me, 50 miles out into the country. And, like, I'm stuck here now with these guys and I don't know them. And I don't know if I can trust them. And I don't know if I can trust you anymore. And to come to find out, you want me to cook and clean for you guys? Like, I thought we were doing this together. It was a team. And now it's like me taking care of everybody. So you go on that ride with her and you feel upset and you feel a little betrayed and hurt. But then, like, she has so much gumption. She rolls up her sleeves and you're like, yeah, get to it, Millie. And in about 14 hours of her being in that house, she changed
Yeah.
everything. The house was clean. The food was cooked. Like the brothers, all the clothes were clean. Everything was in order. So
They
Millie was a
all
boss.
shaved. They all
Yeah,
shaved.
she had got everybody cleaned up exactly. Like everything was in order in less than 24
Also,
hours.
also when she just got married to the dude, she basically, literally, like her first line wasn't like, "Oh, how in love I'm with you" or nothing. She was like, "Oh, basically, people thought I was just gonna not have nobody. I was gonna be lonely, and now I have a house." She literally
Yeah.
said, "Now I have a house." So literally, her whole thing was like, "I want to have a house," and
It's
she
very
moved.
sweet,
Nothing has
right?
changed. No.
It's very sweet because even on like the carriage ride to the house, she's already thinking about the future and she's like planning their
Right.
future. And she goes, well, kids, if you want to have them. And it's like, wow, like she goes, all the stuff that I never thought I was going to have in an instant, maybe I'll have it, which is like really sweet. Gideon is my favorite. He's like the youngest. He's like the teenage brother or whatever. And he's so like naive and silly and funny. And the actor is definitely playing stuff for laughs. I don't know if it's in the script that way, but he's definitely playing it that way. I don't know if it's
Right.
like written up for him to be funny, but he has a lot of business where there's like not lines where he's like being physically funny. And I love it when he punches his brother. Like, I know you can lick the tar out of me, but I gotta do something, like that's all very funny. But then, like, I gotta say, even though like Millie carries this thing for me, and I thought Adam and I thought the younger brother were very handsome. Not the second youngest brother. I forget his name. They begin with the B because they were A B. Who was B? I forget his name.
Benjamin. Benjamin.
Ben. Yeah, Ben. Like Ben is very handsome, and then he gets engaged or married to Deutsches. What's her name? Dorshin.
Duchess. What was it? It was. I
It
can
was
Dorcas.
Dorsey.
Dorcas.
Dorcas.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I have met a Dorcas in real life, but
Oh,
like
I
Dorcas,
kept
like
laughing.
they were like the hottest couple. They were both so good looking, and Julie Newmar is just a straight fox. Like, good lord, like I have such a crush on her. So she would be my favorite, just because like she was fun to look at, and those eyes she was given kind of looked a little bit like Vivian Leigh, Scarlett O'Hara. She kind of has that
Yeah.
look about her. But yeah, she's just, and she almost has like a pinup girl hairdo in this thing too, which
Yeah.
is
The hourglass thing, like figure that a bunch of them had. I was like, what is going on? And they're
it's
like
1950s,
dancing and
man.
stuff.
That's
I'm
how
glad
you
you
work
brought
in
up
Hollywood.
both of the just real quick on the Millie being like, imagine if we weren't really watching it from her perspective, from her point of view, because she's the only one that kind of saves this in today's day and age of just like, yo, just kidnapped women, and if she weren't there, you'd probably rape them too, because who would have stopped you? She was the one that was like, oh, fuck no, like, You guys are banned. Where you are going to the barn. Me and the ladies, we're gonna have the house. Don't even come in. We don't want to talk to you. Like if like set up her own convent. If it weren't for her, I don't see why anyone would still be
This
like
movie would get canceled if it wasn't for Millie's character. For facts, she's very
it's
strong in
yeah.
1954.
I
But
know.
you know what it reminds me of, Dino? It reminds me of like Annie Oakley and Annie Get Your Gun,
Yeah.
because it's like it's a western, and you don't get that many tough women like in that age of like cinema. But sometimes in westerns, you'll get that tough chick who can shoot and spit and curse
Yeah.
with the best of them.
Yeah, no, that's and again, that's also really strict because to put it with Annie Get Your Gun and just the idea of like can level up right there with the man, right, of shooting and all that. They don't make her butch or they don't make her like a tomboy or whatever. Like she's still like full on in dress, still looking great, and she's like getting the flapjacks and everything. So yeah, she really, I mean, was the glue, not just of all the characters and the story, but the movie. Because if not, it could go real south real quick. Also, glad you brought up Dorcas because I kept laughing out loud every time. She was always like, I don't know if it's like the Bye Felicia or I forget what other characters are kind of like that, where it's always like a Janet or a Janice. What's that other musical? What is Janet? Is that Greece? Is Janet from Greece also? Janet.
Oh yeah,
Anyway,
I know you're talking about. She was the one who was nice to what's her face up front, the
yeah,
hairdresser, right?
I think so. I think so. Is that what I'm thinking? But yeah, so I'm every time I would always be like, Dorcas, get out of there. Like I was always like calling out Dorcas like for the randomest shit. Like everyone else had few calls or just the way everyone would pronounce Dorcas is so I don't know. I just love that so much because again, it's not your typical name. I mean, at least not in Paraguay. And
The
yeah,
names in this are so great. I mean, I love that the brothers are named alphabetical, so like you could like know who they are, like easier to remember the names. But also like the fact that there was no F, and they're all biblical names, and there's no F name in the Bible. So they're like, you're Frank, you're frankincense. The parents named him frankincense. We call him Frank.
and that
What
was the
about? Did you?
first fight. Oh yeah, go on, Steve.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the first fight that you brought up also in the background. It's because of them saying like actually he doesn't like his name. It's not Frank. It's Francis is what they said first. And they start fighting, and he keeps giving like the MTV Cribs tour of their shack,
That
and
fight
like they
lasted
going
for so long.
they like go into the separate room and the bros are still fighting in the background in through the doorway in the other room and it's like okay that's funny they'll probably just like pan over like no the fight comes into the room and then more people get into it and I was like what is going
Think about how
on.
many times he had to film that to get the
I know.
timing right.
Yeah, for the positioning and everyone, Kevin, like, man, just like if you've been in plays or also in movies or whatever, there's always that like blocking of just walking and making sure where it's kind of natural and it's timed perfectly. Just to like do a crisscross, just of walking, right? Because you want the perspective, you want the look, all that. You want it to kind of look natural. Now in musicals, it's not always going to look natural because it's heightened usually. But to be able to add all that, and like I was telling Jason, it's not like back then in '54 you had the little, screen
Monitor.
camp, yeah, monitor village or camp or whatever everyone calls it a different thing, where you can just go and look and be like, all right, was everyone on pace? Was everyone on beat? Was there 5, 6, 7, 8 go? Is everyone no, like you just had to film it. I don't know how many times through, and then look at the dailies, and then be like, "All right, I think we got that," or "Now we got to raise that barn again. Come on, Dorcas, get it together."
Yep, without a doubt. And we'll get to that barn raising in a bit. Uh, I know the
Steve's
costumes were like.
character. Oh,
What'd you say?
did Steve get into his characters? I know we've kind of taken over. Favorite character, Steve? Are you hiding?
I'm just chilling. I'm here. uh, so, it's my turn. Can I talk? Okay. So
No, actually, no.
no. Okay. So, uh, I have to agree with both of you guys. Millie to me was the strongest character, but without a shadow of a doubt, I do have to give a hand to all the extras and all the guys and the women as well uh, in the dancing scene, and then gotta give it up to the guys again in the fight scenes because that was pretty much like very transitional, like all within like encompassing one large scene,
Yep.
and just the mere choreography of everything that was going on at the same time, it's remarkable. Like I was like, wow, everything looks so clean and crisp. And there were people falling and hitting each other with weapons and all types of stuff. I think Vince McMahon actually took some notes from here and created the WWE. You're muted, Dino.
I see, I see. There's the one part Gideon gets like thrown out the window or through the wall. He decides to climb up to the roof, to the rafters, just to jump back down on people. Like not even to fight someone that was up there on the roof because they were all
And it doesn't
spider
look
on the
like
roof.
wires either. It just looks dangerous.
He just dove. He like you think about like again we brought up John Wick or everything, and you're like, oh, Tom Cruise. It's like, all right, bigger stunts are gonna come out at the end. Like the dance that barn building thing had to be last, right? It's like you're jumping from a roof. We can recast this. Like this gets filmed. Like I don't even know how they did that, or everyone was so classically trained in dancing because at first it's like, oh, it's Oklahoma, but then they're like jumping on the wood. It's like Cirque du Soleil. It's like, what are we?
Yeah, and at the same time, they're building a house. Like
That's right.
how
Barn.
They're raising a barn all in the same sequence.
it's crazy.
It was wild.
And when they were jumping in that wood that would bend.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I want to. Where are the okay? We need Jackie Chan style outtakes to see how many times jumping on the wood just cracked and they fell. How many times they slipped and busted their nuts on the wood. How many times they bounced off, landing on someone else. Like we need some of that. We need like Dorcas in a cast but has to put a shoe sock on so that it looks like she is still that. Like we need all that. I want to see all that from this movie.
Yeah, this movie is of the age and is considered a classic. There's got to be a ton of retrospective stuff on this movie online. There's just got to be. Sure, there's all types of like DVD stuff made before the cast passed away. I would imagine um, yeah, there's got to be a lot to this thing. I don't who even directed it. I don't even know who directed it.
Wait, the cast passed away?
A lot of the cast has passed away. Yeah, they would be like in their late 80s now.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, right.
Uh,
Stanley Donen directed it.
well, Gideon is still alive. He was born in the late 30s. Um,
Okay.
he, and he's still be working.
He's still being worked. Um,
He
so,
was in Drive, I guess. He was
oh, was he?
yeah,
Oh,
and
He
that's
was
then
cool.
driving. He was driving.
He
He
was
was Baby
the
Driver.
the doctor in Drive. I don't know the doc,
Drive.
whatever.
Oh, the Ryan Gosling film.
Gosling.
Yeah. It says he was
Okay,
doc, so I guess yeah.
cool.
But a bunch of these people, I don't know if it's musical theater or what. a bunch of them made it to their like late 80s. The director died in 2019 at 94. So like most of the people in this, I guess, with all the cardio from all that dancing and jumping and fighting, they're pretty healthy, you know.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, they all looked pretty strapping in the film. Um, the costumes were a little bit of a point of contention, I know, for Dino and I. Costume, hair, and makeups. But what did you think, Steve? What was your take?
I think especially for the dancing slash building slash fighting scene that they were doing was easier. Because, for example, that was the part where like my friend walked in and started watching the movie, and I was like, "Oh, the brothers are the ones in color," so it was easier to like describe
Yeah.
like who they were because they were literally the only ones in color, and everybody was dressed like they're Mormons.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So one of the issues, by the way, I love the costumes and the hair and the makeup and everybody having the red hair. I thought Adam looked better with the beard. I liked him as rugged Davy Crockett type a little bit
is the
more than like the,
wait was the red hair fake?
No,
I don't know. Looked like a real beard to me.
Adam always had the stash. He
Yeah,
never
he did
had a
have a
beard.
stash.
He never had a
No, he had
beard.
a beard in the very beginning.
Yeah, he
No, when he
shaved.
went in, that's why I thought she was like all ready to marry him because he had the stash.
No, no, he says, let me go to the barber and get shaved and cleaned up before we get married. Then I'll find us a pastor.
Yeah, but that's shaved. But he had a stash.
He had a beard and a stash. It was a full blown beard situation.
Really?
Yeah.
He was Chuck Norris in that. I don't remember that.
Yeah, in the
Yeah,
beginning,
go back and check it out.
he was like in front of the window.
Yeah, he was shaving at the barber shop. He went to the barber shop and shaved himself. He didn't even let the barber do it. And then he thanked the barber and left. Um,
Yeah,
what was I going to say in that regard? Oh, so like the costumes were pretty cool, and obviously they're telling you who these people are. And they kind of have like this corresponding. They're not directly corresponding with the girl that they're going to marry, but all the girls do have the same colors on as the guys, but not directly linked. This like kind of like diagonal or whatever. Um, but the problem that I had with it was is that how nice all everybody looks, even when they're living out in the wilderness for months on end. Now I know, like once Millie got the fellas fixed up and looking nice, they stayed with their dress clothes on for the rest of the movie. They like, I like the way this feels. I like being clean cut. They weren't really dirty anymore. They were all pretty clean dudes in their nice Sunday clothes. And then the women, I know they were like there for like a few months or whatever, at least 2 or 3 months, no, a whole winter and a spring. They were there and their outfits were changing and they still stayed like with their hair looking nice and like they were still very put together out there in the backwoods, which was kind of like, what? I mean, I know you guys have each other to fix each other up, but they were just very clean cut. And Dino asked about it and I was like, well, maybe it's the mother's clothes. He said, my mother has a whole wardrobe of clothes that you can, have whatever you want. She goes, I look forward to that. So maybe it was that. Maybe the mother just had all these really nice clothes laying around because the girls looked impeccable. They looked great.
yeah. I just think
I
it's just to imply that men are disgusting.
well, there's that. That's what I was having fun with because, like I said, they got kidnapped in the middle of the night. At least one of them was still like in her nightgown or whatever, and then they had multiple outfits while they were snowed in. So I'm like, man, that mom must have had a whole bunch of different outfits, different colors, everything, or they've been sewing the whole time it's been snowing. That to me, I just thought it was funny. And same thing, all the girls when they're barn raising, the main girls have color on, the guys have color on. The bad guys, they all had vests. The bad dudes all had vests because they take their jackets out off at some point. So, yeah, I just kept thinking that's my thing sometimes with theater or musical. I try to, because there's no real way of doing like a time change and stuff like that easily, that I'm just like, they got one outfit, kind of with cartoons, right? Like Bob's Burgers, Simpsons, they're always wearing the same outfit. And with musicals, it's just funnier that way, because it's like, I guess being in the woods chopping and all that can still look impeccable.
Yeah, man. So I got a little information here for you guys, but I'd like to know before I give it to you, how do you think this movie did at the box office? How do you think this thing fared when it was released originally?
How
Like
much
a
mo-
flip.
how much money did it cost to be made?
Well, not so much how much it cost being made, but do you guys think it was successful at the box office? Do you think audiences received it well? What do you guys think?
I think it was wildly successful
Yeah.
amongst the whites.
Well,
Amongst
this was probably the
moviegoers,
time when a lot of people of color weren't even allowed into the cinema, so they probably never seen it until much later.
I think
54.
I think they
Yeah.
haven't seen it until now.
Well, my aunt saw it. I don't know how she saw it. Maybe, I mean, she must have saw it when she was younger, but she saw it.
Yeah, unless it was already on TV. Um, yeah, I think it did well. I mean, it's the golden age of musicals movies,
I
late
guess.
50s, when they were doing filmed versions of musicals. I feel like that's around the time. Broadway on film.
Maybe. I mean, so 54 is a really interesting year. There's some really interesting movies that came out that year. I mean, this thing was competing against stuff like On the Waterfront and what else came out in 54? There was I have a
And
whole
that's in black and white, right? On the
that
waterfront, black and white.
that's right. That's Marlon Brando in black and white. This Seven Samurai came out in Japan the same year.
Yeah.
La Strada, A Star Is Born. Um,
That's the one with Lady
Sam,
Gaga.
nope, the other one.
The black and
Carmen
white one.
Jones came out that same year. Animal
That's
Farm came out that year.
Animal Farm.
Yeah. And, well, the movie version of Animal Farm.
So this one and Carmen Jones sound like the only ones that were in color that year, of the ones you were saying. Maybe there was
Yeah,
another one in color, but La Strada, Seven Samurai, all of those were black and white.
all black
So
and white. Mostly movies are black and white at this time. So
yeah,
for a movie to be in color, obviously very expensive,
and
right?
musical. Yeah.
And it's a musical, so this thing's not really a cheap production. So this movie made about 9.4 million on a $2.5 million budget.
Yeesh.
So
Is that
it made,
updated?
I don't know what that would be for inflation. I didn't do the math, but I mean it made 3 times his budget back, so that's good.
Yeah. Whole lot of money. And
Yeah,
they weren't getting paid much.
more than three
Actors
times,
and
almost four
yeah.
times, almost 4 times. Yeah,
Most of that
these
money going straight
these
to
are
the
all
lion.
studio players at this
Yeah.
time, so they're getting like a weekly check. But
Yep.
also for movies like this to get made, you almost have to have that where you're paying people like a weekly amount because then you can just keep them in rehearsal and learning this kind
Yeah.
of really complicated choreography. And these are definitely like musical theater people. Like there's no other way to phrase it. And like Steve was saying, like everybody's hyper athletic. These are all very strong dancers. Like they're dancing on their hands half. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
They're probably non-union too.
Oh yeah, they're definitely non-union. They're being
Did you
worked.
did you look to see if any of them were on Broadway with this musical?
I don't know. I would imagine that this thing came from Broadway first, just because of like how it's structured. But I
No,
don't
but I
know.
mean cast wise, you know.
Oh, like were they a part of the original Broadway cast?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're
Hollywood
prob
sometimes had problems with that, from what I understand.
Oh no, it totally did. Even the like Rocky Horror Picture Show, although that was a shit show anyway to begin with. They had Tim Curry being his same character, but other than that, they had the writer, composer, director be the, it's not Renfro, whatever his name is. So yeah, they normally will keep one, maybe two people from Broadway in the movie, which is super bizarre because it's like if you watch this Broadway musical and you thought it's great and you thought it's good enough for a film, don't you want the characters, the actors that made it feel great to be the ones that are also on screen? But you're
So
right.
actually, we're wrong. I'm going to stop you right there because this thing was not. This thing was written for the screen. Later on, it was written for Broadway in 1982.
Wow.
So there you have it.
So it
There you
was
have it.
literally filmed as they came up with the idea as a musical movie in the style of what? Yeah. So
Yep.
this was, I guess, fits in with the golden age of we gotta have musical on film now, and we just started having color, so people are coming just to see color and sound, right?
Yep. One of the rare color films. I mean, I guess uh, Wizard of Oz was like in 42. This thing is 12 years later, but even within that 12-year period, there's not a ton of color films. I mean, not at least not the ones that are like largely celebrated. It looks like
Hmm.
just from an overview. I could be totally wrong about that, but just from an overview, a lot of these movies in between time, they're just not color. Not until like maybe 55.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys are in black and white. Yeah, as it would seem. I don't know. Maybe I have to do a little bit deeper dive on that. Um, let's see. Anything else that you guys wanted to talk about this film?
I don't know. That's what I
Just,
just assumed that it was Broadway first, but other than
just to
that,
Yeah,
me,
I would have to.
I mean, just to me, I would say just how much time has evolved. And technically, it hasn't even been that long since that. It hasn't even been 100 years.
No,
you know.
So, like, think about that. Like, that's actually very impressive.
69
Cause,
Uh,
years.
that that
cause
like
no, go on.
no, that like so much change has happened. Like before, like literally me watching this, it reminded me of like caveman days. Where
Yeah.
literally throw a rock. It's like, okay, you're my wife, and like,
Right.
So that I do want to talk about because we talked about that a little bit. So in the olden times, in like the days of like the West and people moving west for the first time and going to San Francisco during the gold rush, there were a lot of men already on the West Coast because of the gold rush, and they wanted wives. So they started putting out ads for wives and sending them back east. And caravans of women would like answer these ads and say, "Yeah, I'll marry you without sight unseen, no photos, too expensive, right? Sight unseen." They would go out west, risk their lives on a carriage, right? Just caravans of people in a what do you call those? Like I guess they're carriages, right?
Yeah. Wagon.
Wagons. Yeah.
It's a
And
wagon
and they
train.
would go out west and answer these ads, and you don't know what you're getting. And you find yourself a husband and a wife. There's actually a movie about that called Westward the Women. And like I guess like these two cowboys basically wrangle up all these women and say, "We'll escort you out west. It's going to be like a 2-month journey. We're going to
And
go on a
that's where
wagon train."
escort, the
oh
phrase an
that
escort came in play. Is just getting escorted around the Oregon Trail.
oh
Maybe.
An
I,
escort.
I I heard that's how Craigslist got started. The
There you
casual
I
go.
mean,
encounters.
technically, it was Craigslist. It was Craigslist
Yeah.
before computer. That's exactly what it was.
A newspaper, you say?
Yeah, they were called
Um,
newspapers.
a telegram. So you brought that up of women, and talk about another movie that I guess would be a fun because it's so colorful also and like wide shot and all that, that I think could be a great, hear me out, great companion piece to this. just of the idea of marrying without kind of seeing the whatever. Classic, probably the best opening in cinema of all time. Any idea, Jason? Maybe we're linking up
The
time
best
period.
opening in cinema. That's pretty
Austin Powers.
Yeah, pretty close. And there's like no dialogue in like the first 8 minutes or so. Um, Once Upon a Time in the West. So
interesting.
the
I was
whole
very
thing is
close.
her, like she got married over mail and was coming to show up, and
That's
like
right.
husband was already a widow, so she's like, I'm coming home and I'm gonna have 5 kids and blah 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 in a land. And well, watch the movie, guys, because that's not what happens. And
Right.
but yeah, so that's another strong female character, which clearly wasn't in '54. It was in the '70s. Was it 70? Not 60. Anyway, but the other thing about Millie also, just because you brought up of how it felt caveman also, but also, and with so much bringing up of the Bible, the names, everything, they were even reading scripture. They were talking about the sobbing women, and then yeah, we'll just take our women. And but then when she decided to get, it was like, Millie, you just met the man. You can't marry her. She's like, I can do whatever I want. I decide if I want to get married, and I want to get married. And to me, that was like super, like, clearly people were doing it just to, back in the day or whatever. But to put that on film, to just be like, hey, woman can, if she wants to get married, then she can decide. That's
See, I think there's been a bit of a fallacy for us to like make us think that there hasn't been strong women in cinema when there clearly has been a lot of them. Every time we watch an old movie, sometimes we're often surprised about like what was actually going on in
yeah.
cinema. And we're like, wait a minute, that's not the narrative now. They keep telling us that it's not this way. But then we look back and you're like, no, wait, like they make it seem like because there wasn't a ton of strong women in cinema, like maybe more recently,
Right.
in certain cases, that it never existed, and therefore women weren't strong back in those days when they clearly were. There's always been tough women. There's always been headstrong women. Maybe the rules don't dictate that by like voting laws and whatnot. There's a joke about that in the movie, right?
Yeah.
And this is '54. They're talking about it, right? Like it's not really that far removed from women being able to vote.
It's 54, but it's also the frontier time. I forget the actual age. And they're like,
Yeah,
eventually women will get the right to vote. I mean, Hamilton ended up doing that too. And they're like, I'm going to send blah, blah, blah. And for the next one, we'll get women to vote. Perfect Hamilton rap I just did for you guys.
yeah,
But
yeah. I don't know if it's like a eye wink or if it's like an actual joke.
in Seven Brides,
Yeah,
I think it's why not both? Could it be
I
both?
guess it
Could
could
be
be.
both.
Why not?
But
Why not?
there's that whole phrase or saying about the outlier, right? It's like there are strong women, but it was also before McCarthyism, before like the another movie that we saw in Cinema Club, Cinema Paradiso, kind of deals with that when film first. A lot of times when their first is a new creation, a new way, especially dealing with art, everything kind of goes wild and bananas and explore everything. And then it's where it starts getting censored or there's purity laws and all that. And that was kind of in Cinema Paradiso. They talk about that because the church was in charge of the movie theater. So they came in and just censored anything that was remotely sexual, right? And but it was like that kind of in the 30s, going into the 50s in Hollywood of just like, even though there's a lot of innuendos, but I mean, the most, and it wasn't until the very end, I believe that very last scene is the first time they kiss. Anyone kisses. Maybe Adam and Millie kissed at the beginning, but that was really the first like passionate kiss was at the very end when it's like we all got wives now.
Yeah. That's true.
Because she, wedding night, she wasn't going to let him sleep in there. She was pissed.
She was, and then rightfully so. I mean, all things considered. All right, so let's go into final thoughts. Steve, why don't you jump us off with some final thought action on Seven Brides for Seven Brothers?
Sure, I'll delight you. So for final thoughts, uh, wow, this movie is.
Wait, Steve, you got to turn all your bottles around. We're not promoting Raid and all those other companies unless they want to support our channel.
Listen, Linda, let me talk. It's my final thought. Okay, I'm trying to do my thoughting in the finals. So, as my final thought, this movie from the beginning leaves you going, wait a minute, supposed to be seven brides for seven brothers. Is this one woman gonna have seven different personalities? What?
Hmm.
But no, that's not the case. And then when you keep seeing the movie, you go like, is there gonna be a black person here? But no, that's not gonna happen. And then while you still watch the movie, you go like, oh my God, these people are so athletic and so in tune and are by far the most rhythmic and going along with the melody white people I ever seen in my life.
I agree.
And it is a movie that honestly from a person that literally despises, because I don't want to use the word hate, it's too strong, but despises musicals.
Hmm.
And I was like, why am I watching this? This should be the week that I skip. I found it very entertaining. I would have never found this movie on my own. So thank you, Jason. And it's definitely a movie that, even though I do agree, it doesn't really have memorable songs, it has memorable scenes. And it's because of so much action going on in a musical. That is like, that's like by far the thing that I would think will have the least amount of action, like actual action. And I felt like I was watching a WWE fight. I was like, this is crazy. There's ladders. There's
Yeah,
a
there's a
lot.
ladder match.
It's a ladder match right there in the movie. So anyway, those are my final thoughts.
Sure. I'll go ahead and give you mine, and then Dino, you can cap us off.
Well, I'll let you finish since you
Sure.
were
Go ahead,
hostess.
please.
Yeah, I also, just from hearing this, seeing the colorful pictures and all that, I was like, oh, I don't want to watch this musical. Like it seems like the less popular Oklahoma, but it makes so much sense now that you said that it was a movie first and then Broadway, which also makes sense because throughout the movie I was like, they haven't sung a song, they haven't sang the
Thank
song,
a song.
sang the song in so long, and I was even like making fun that we were watching a GIF, especially when they like kidnap the women and it's just a shot of like the sled with them in it, a shot of like the peaks, a shot of, and it was a repeat image, and I'm like, oh my god, they just love to build up tension by just showing the same shot over and over. Uh, but I was so happy, like this movie was like it's so ridiculous. It's so silly. It's so fun. And you're right, not a whole lot of memorable songs, but it's just the action and the goofiness of it all. It really makes it. So I enjoyed it. Now, would I recommend it? I don't think I'd recommend it to anyone unless we're talking RRR and dance offs, which I'm like, is this the first dance off? Are we? Is this in cinema or just like popular culture? Is this the first time where it's like two groups of people are gonna dance off? Or now that would probably have to do with tap dancing, probably, I would imagine. But I did look up Dorcas because I think I'm like that name is just amazing. It's from ancient Greek, and there's a lot of, Dorcas Ye Blackmore, one of the first named African Americans to settle in New England. So then there's like Nigerian badminton player, way more Dorcas than I thought there were in the world. So I've learned a new name, and I wanna bring Dorcas back. I think we need to start using it more often in our vernacular.
Yeah, there needs to be more Dorcas babies born now. I
Dorcas.
agree. So I picked up on a little bit of information that I want to share with you guys because this movie, I liked it a lot. I enjoyed it a lot, actually, and I didn't expect to, if I'm being honest with you. But I knew the reason I also was excited to pick it, not just because it's my aunt's favorite movie, it was also on Time Magazine's 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die list. So I was pretty confident that the movie wasn't going to be a dud. I knew there was something kind of special about it. And if anything stands out more than anything else, it's absolutely 100%, which you guys have mentioned before many times throughout this little cast, is that the choreography. You just can't say enough about it. I mean, it's spectacular. So whoever did the choreo on this thing is pretty brilliant, man. Like, and I can only imagine how long it took to rehearse and how long it took to shoot the outside barn raising scene. It probably took 2, 3 weeks to shoot just that one scene. It's so intricate, like the individual things that they do. It's a whole dance battle. It's Save the Last Dance, Step Up to the Streets, part 3. It's really a lot going on. And there's a fight scene happening in the background of that. Like and like Steve said, there's a ladder match. There's a full on. It, it, there's a lot happening. That scene I recommend to anyone. So who would I recommend this movie to? I would recommend this movie to just about everybody. It's really good for the whole family in that regard. It's a musical. It's a really funny, strong musical, but the songbook is not super memorable. Performed well though. The music is performed well, and the music's not awful. It's just I don't, none of the songs got stuck in my head, and I think that's almost how we judge musicals. Like, does the song get stuck in my head? Am I humming it the next day at work? Which with these I just don't. So this movie is actually kind of in the vein of like that Annie Oakley, Annie Go Get Your Gun, Oklahoma thing. It puts you in the mind of those because of these strong female leads. Here's the note that I wanted to add that I researched while you guys were talking. Annie Get Your Gun, the male lead in that movie is also Howard Keel, the lead in this movie. Annie Get Your Gun was filmed in 1950. This is 54. He
Oh
probably
wow.
gets this movie because Annie Get Your Gun, he was probably very memorable in that. That's what I would imagine. Because
Well, see, oh, go on.
everybody's heard of Annie Get Your Gun, but I don't know a lot of people who just randomly blurt out Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. But he's in both of these movies. Also,
Well,
like Calamity Jane puts me in the mind of
yeah.
that strong female Western. I can do anything type stuff. So that's what I recommend it to. Would I watch the film again? Yeah, I actually would watch it again. I actually would like to share this with someone down the line. I'm not sure who, but this is a movie that it could be fun by yourself, but like Dino said earlier, it's a really fun movie to share with somebody else because it's kind of one of those movies where there's so much happening. You sort of want to make mention to it to someone next to you. You want to be able to
Yeah.
like talk to the film and someone else to like experience it with. It's like it just feels like a family movie to me. It feels like a family movie or a movie that you watch with someone who also appreciates movies and just like hanging out and having a chat about them. So that is my final thought. Unless you had
Can
an idea, Dino, a
I
thought.
did just because you brought up the choreographer, so I had to look it up real quick. And yeah, he became pretty big. This movie is kind of what set him out just because
Okay.
everyone saw it, and I mean clearly. But so not based on a Broadway musical, but it is based on a short story, The Sabine Women, which is
Mm.
based in turn on ancient Roman legend of the rape of the Sabine women, which again is just like, oh boy, what a great like
Which they
thing
mentioned
to.
in the movie.
They did mention it. They kept mentioning it. But anyway, so in '97, he initially turned down the choreographer turned down the job. He was like, I don't want to do it. So this is his quote in 1997. Here are these Slavs living off in the woods. They have no schooling. They are uncouth. There's manure on the floor. The cows come in and out, and they're gonna get up and dance. We'd be laughed out of the house. Like that explains it all. How why this is so entertaining, because it's like, how the hell, like, and remember she started teaching them manners and like a
Hmm.
little waltz, and then that afternoon when they're up in the barn building, they're like doing all these different jigs and dancing, and yeah, and we were like, they learned all that in 10 minutes.
Shout out to Millie. Is there anything she can't do? She did it all. She taught these slobs with manure on the floor of their house how to
Yeah.
dance in an afternoon and dance incredibly, right?
Not only
Like
that, not just one, six of them taught
six of
six.
enough to mac women at the barn raising. That's how good
Yeah.
they were. Like girls wanted to dance with them real bad. So I guess that sums it up. I guess that sums up everybody's final thought. I'm glad that you guys were able to share this film with me this week. Thought this was a pretty important one personally, and I'm glad that I actually had someone to share it with, and I'm glad it's the one that I picked. Thanks for watching it.
Oh,
One more.
wait, wait,
Yep.
wait, quick. Sorry, I know this was supposed to be the quick. What does this after watching this, what does it say about, was it your aunt, or does this inform more of like her personality, her character, her sensibility, sense of humor, anything?
So I think the silliness and the funniness of it is probably what she enjoyed a lot about it. Um, it's funny because my mom's one of her favorite movies. I mentioned it earlier. Is Westward the Women. She made me watch when I was a kid, which is about the women going west to answer the ad for their husbands, which is kind of similar to this. So I mean, I would imagine I'm going to talk to my mom about it, but I imagine they probably watched this movie when they were like adolescents or something, and like it made some kind of impression on them. I think it being colorful and cheerful and funny and playful. I think that's what my aunt probably liked about it the most. Oh, and it's very physical, like the punching and the fighting and the dancing and like the athleticism. I think that's probably what she enjoyed the most. So
Right?
great question. Which leaves me with one final question, and that's Steve. What do you got for us next week?
Next week, I don't know why you asked me, because it is my week. Yay!
What?
I'm back picking movies. And next week's movie is actually a movie that so many people, but I'm talking so many people, are still talking about this movie, even though it was filmed quite a while ago. It has some of the top A-list actors. This movie has everything. It has action, it has drama, it has comedy. It's
Rush Hour.
absolutely, it's absolutely incredible. This film. It's not Rush Hour. Uh,
Jurassic Park.
it's not Jurassic Park. Uh, but I'm gonna give you hints so you guys can guess. Because at this point, we probably lost all our viewers. But
We're gaining them right now, right this moment, because they're
right
like,
now,
oh, Steve is gonna make people guess. All right, go.
yeah. So where I'm at, which is an island in the Caribbean, the weather is
Warm,
no,
beautiful,
Sunny,
no,
windy, with a chance
no,
of rain.
humid,
no, no,
meatballs flying from the
no,
sky,
no. I'm in the
wet, wet, Westworld, Westworld,
no. It starts with a T.
Tropics.
There you go. There you go.
the, the,
Oh, I
the
know.
semi-tropics. Tropic Thunder.
Robert Downey Jr.
Here we go. We're
Yep.
going to
Tropic
watch
Thunder.
Tropic Thunder, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
We are
Jesus.
revisiting. We're revisiting this gem of a movie.
Black
Anyway.
Killer.
So for El Dondino, Jason Eccles, and me, Steve, that's DVD. We'll catch you next week. Bye bye.